Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here. Today I'm going to talk to you about land values. I want to look at the marketplace, see what they're going for. So I'm going to hope to set out kind of borderlines for what your plot of land is worth. And then I'm going to speculate on where these prices targets are going to go in the short, medium, and maybe even long term. Okay, so let's get into it. But before I do, my name is Dwayne Cunningham. I go by Infidel 1258. On this channel, we cover Splinterlands all day, every day, because it's changed my life, and I really think it could change yours. Part of how it will and how it has is that you buy these assets that are relatively inexpensive at one point in time, but because of their limited number, and actually in some cases their shrinking supply with the cards, for example, you see this price appreciation because there's a fixed supply or even a deflationary supply with a growing user base. And that's a recipe for price appreciation. So I think that's going to be part of the story with land. But let's get into some of the numbers as we carry the conversation forward. So first of all, $42,000 worth of 24-hour volume on the land. That's, I mean, pretty well, that's the first day. Let's say that's $42,000 worth of buy and sell volume happening on the first day of land having been surveyable. And I'd say that's really substantial. I mean, the idea that yesterday these were just pictures of land, and now they're assets that are tradable, that are marketable, that are, that people are desiring, and $42,000 worth of money has exchanged hands over these assets. And I think that's the thing. They are assets. On the recent town hall, Nate referred to them as land ownership or land cards as being a small business that you own. And I think that's really apt, because actually they're going to not only produce SPS as you hold the plot of land, but they're also going to produce items and spells and resources that translate into items and spells. And so you have this production force and this community of plots of land or properties that are going to generate ongoing revenue. And even if you look at the SPS alone, you're talking about 1 SPS per day per plot, assuming you've got it surveyed, because I believe that proposal passed. And so if that's the case, then you're talking 365 SPS per plot of land per year, which based on 3-cent SPS is something like $10. But then take that forward. Do you think SPS is always going to be 3 cents? I mean, I don't. I believe it's going to be $1 one day. So you've heard me talk about on this channel before about a retroactive raise. When the assets later appreciate, you accumulate them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and at some point in the future, the asset appreciates wildly, going from 1 penny to maybe $1 or 3 pennies to $1 in the case of SPS. That's my view. That's my prediction. If that prediction ends up being accurate, and if you have a plot of land between now and then, you're going to be stacking 1 SPS per day, 365 a year. And even across 1 year, if you imagine the price appreciating from 3 cents to, $1, I'm not saying that's my forecast for the next 12 months, that's going to be the price story for SPS, but just for the sake of argument, if something like that happens, did you make $10 from holding that plot of land? No, you made $365 because the SPS is at that moment in that future date $1, and you made 365 SPS. So that's the retroactive raise opportunity with these assets. And the same sort of logic applies to how cards can appreciate, because it can happen so suddenly where your 1 cent cards are suddenly $1. And that's my expectation for the assets in this game. That's my degree of confidence with this game. You have to ask yourself whether you think the game is fun and has a future, and then that can begin to formulate your own confidence or lack of confidence. And that's okay. If you want to sell, the beauty of Splinterlands is if you don't have that confidence, if you don't think the game's fun, you can actually liquidate and move on. So beautiful no matter how you find it, but it's so important to ask the question, do you think it's fun and it has a future? Because it's going to put you on one side of the fence or the other. Either you're going to start liquidating now because you don't believe in the future, or you're going to start acquiring now, or even just through time and attention, by playing the game, accumulating assets that you believe will one day be worth way more than they are now. So SPS is part of that, but there's more to it, because ultimately your land is going to generate items and spells. It's going to generate those other resources. It's going to also indirectly cause cards price appreciation, because staking of cards into the land when that's available will diminish greatly the supply of cards on the marketplace, meaning that your card assets should appreciate wildly because there's so many fewer cards available to buy and to rent. And so this is a radically important moment in thinking through first, if you think the game is fun and has a future, and second, how you can best benefit from the land is what we're talking about. And in order to, I guess, begin to formulate that plan, you need to understand where we are standing right now. So like I said, 42,000 daily volume for the first day, not too shabby. And I think that's going to go up and up and up as these values go up and up and as the utility rises too. But where are we at now? What are the prices now? This is important. This is like floor stuff, right? Like let's understand what these plots are even worth. If you come into Peak Monsters, you might not know this, but if you come into Peak Monsters, you click on the buy over here. There's a little down arrow, and then you can click on buy land, and then you can actually activate certain filters. Right here, I've got queued up the common. So this is going to be displaying every common rarity land plot that is currently listed for sale. This is not every plot of land, because not every plot of land has a price, because not every plot of land has been listed for sale. But of those that have been listed for sale, there are 432 commons that are listed right now. Out of all of those that have been claimed, thousands and thousands have been claimed. 432 commons are being listed. And then from this list, you can see that the price starts at $74. 83,770 DC can get you this. Crypto Eater's been a big seller over the last day. He must have had regions or tracks or something, because I've seen his name a lot. He's always undercutting everybody by $1 or even more. And we're going to see his name over and over again here as we move through the rarities. But I'm saying right now, as of today, a common is going to be, really worth in that $70 to $80 range. And that's really with nothing special. Like, he's got building in a box here, and this is a cool that you can track. This is important, because if it has building in a box, it's better than if it doesn't. So some of them don't, and as this one has none of it. But as you can see, there's more than that. It's not just whether it has specialties like the boosts, the building in the box or whatever. It's also what type of resources it produce. This one's grain. Some of them are magical. Some of them are, grain is the one that's going to feed your people. Grain is certainly going to be important, but it seems like it's the most common and maybe the least desirable currently. At least it's certainly it's consistently the cheapest from every rarity type. So you'll see that being the case. Usually people are selling the grain for cheaper. I don't know if that's going to prove to be kind of the best play, but I think this in part has to do with the fact that producing grain in the short term isn't going to be a desirable output, because grain is the thing we feed our monsters with that are farming our land. And I think probably in the short term, what's going to be really desirable is those magical ones, because the magical ones are increasing your returns for Praetoria's secret efforts. And so that's you have to recognize what you're buying. Grain is kind of short term, less desirable, therefore there's an opportunity maybe in the prices of it. But right now I'm saying a common, like the worst of the worst, is in that $70 to $80 range. I think really 75 is probably the most accurate price point. Yesterday we saw some selling in that 75, 76 range. Today it seems like the same thing. Yesterday evening, when there was a bit of an uptick in the purchases, 80, 85, 90 was more common. So I don't believe these prices will last long. I do think that there will be some instability where we hover up and down, but $75, what does that compare? From a plot of land perspective, it's about half the price. If you were to come in here into the non-card market and buy an unclaimed, unsurveyed plot of land, you're paying $158, 160 after the first one. So, if you then say most plots of land are going to turn into a common, you're going to spend $160 to get up common, or you can come into to Peak Monsters and buy one for 80, 75, 80. So I'm going to say that's a great deal, long-term and short-term. And I think ultimately, but I do think short-term, there's room for this to drop lower. We still have a good number of plots that are yet to be surveyed and claimed. And as more supply comes on the market, it is fair to believe that this price would tick lower. But medium, long-term, I think there's no way that these are highs. Like, I just have to, again, do you share my confidence with the fun aspect of this game, the future of this game? If so, I cannot understand how 75 would be a ceiling. This is going to be something of a floor, and any sort of prices that tick lower in the short term, in my mind, over 1, 2, 3 years, it's going to be the blip on the radar where we're going to often say to ourselves, man, I can't believe we let them go so cheap. But it might be a play if you want a little slice of land to just come in and buy a few commons, especially sometimes there are consecutive plots of land, like right here. This is in, I don't know what that, this is PRBRL. That's a certain land type or certain region and tract. You got tract 40 or region 40, tract 10, land plot 2, and you got right beside it land plot 3. They're both lakes, they're both grain, they're both building in a box. Right there, I would say this is more interesting to me than, for instance, saving $2. I'd rather have 2 consecutive plots that are side by side. And if you could find the number 4, or if you can find, a 3 or a 4, however many you want, really, you want them to be consecutive. You want them to be connected so that you're not dealing with transportation fees and expensive, shipping costs. So if you're a long-time landholder, think about that. Pay a little more to try and find consecutive plots as opposed to getting one cheap one here and one totally in a different section of the area, unless your play is entirely just long-term appreciation, because there's the ongoing kind of business that you want to generate revenue. That's one play here, and the other play is I don't care about the ongoing revenue. I just want to have outsized returns by buying the cheapest plot of land possible. So I, for one, think the ongoing revenue stream is going to be really important, as well as the price appreciation, and so I would want consecutive plots. Other considerations that I want to raise now. It probably makes a lot of sense to corner markets. So if grain is really cheap right now, I would see there was a real possibility to generate, outsized returns for yourself if you could build yourself a little grain business. If you can get 2, 3, 5, 10 plots of land that are consecutive and they're all grain related, I think that's going to be a strong acquisition long term, because when we are farming and when monsters need those resources, we are going to see an increase in that sort of demand. So I would argue that there might be a moment now where people are sleeping on this asset, and that could be an opportunity for, as an investor. And one last thing, I'm going to move on to rare now, but as we look at the distinction between common, rare, epic, and legendary, I don't know the exact numerical differences in sort of their productive power, but I do know that the common or the legendary is going to be double the productive power that a common is. And I think it was like rare is 10% more, epic is 20, and I think it was common is legendary is double the productive power of a common. I think rare is 20% greater than a common, and epic is 40% greater than a common, I believe was the math. It was something in that neighborhood. But I think the takeaway is that a legendary is, of course, way more powerful at double. But if you're looking at the price point of $5,000 to get a legendary versus, $5,000 could buy you, I don't know, 500 plots or something like that of common, I think you start to get into a place where the math just doesn't make sense. So let's carry on though. Common, I think I see a lot of value here. Let's go to rare. Actually, I got a different tab here. So here we got the rares pulled up, and you can see that we're starting in the 150 range, 149, 150. And that's looks like a pretty stable from a supply perspective. You got at least 15 plots of land in that 150 range. There's 140 deeds available in the range with the rarity. And again, there's a medley or a mix of different resources available. Grain is not the first and foremost here. I'm seeing a lot of stone. I'm seeing a little bit of wood and ore. Grain is kind of, if you wanted to grain at a rare, it looks like it's actually going to be that 160 price point. And so, I mean, I would argue 150 seems like the price. And I would argue, yes, I would say that yesterday was the same thing for that rare. But then there is other modifiers, right? These are just natural resources, wood, stone, ore, grain. These are natural resources. There's also magical and occupied. And we didn't touch on this with common. We will circle back after we go through just the basic prices. But those are going to multiply the price point for each of your plots of land. If you happen to get a common magical or a common occupied, that's going to be a totally different price point than the basic $75. So if you end up seeing somebody, there might be opportunities where you see somebody come in here and list. Watch the marketplace over the next couple of days. If you see somebody listing a magical or a occupied in that 149 range for a rare, they are pricing it according to, that means they're pricing it according to essentially the lowest rare that's on the marketplace, but that's not truly a comparable. A comparable would be a magical. And I'll show you in a minute the easy way to identify those comparables, but let's carry on. Epic's going to be in that $300 range to say $400. And this is actually one of the cheaper epics. You know, this is tempting here. Building in a box, I might buy this right now, actually. Hang on, where are we located here? Tract 4. See, here's the problem. I don't have any other tracks over there. And this is not a consecutive situation where I can go ahead and list. So, but for $300, I think that's a pretty interesting play. If this is here in a few minutes, when toward the end of my video, I might buy this. But I do believe that 400 is kind of the price to 500 is kind of the price. See, as you can see for the epics, there's only 46 deeds, so the supply is far lower. If somebody came in and said they wanted to buy 3, 4, 5 plots, the price just changes instantly, because you just end up gobbling up these few. There's just a few odd people out who are like, yeah, I'm willing to get rid of it for 300. You know, eager to try something else, he says, right? Crypto Eater, I told you he's been pricing his a little bit cheaper than everyone else, but you know, 400, 500 has been quite common for the epic levels, and I don't even think there are any epic magicals or occupieds. Yeah, there is epic magic, magic. Here's a couple of occupieds. As you can see, the occupieds are way more expensive. I don't know if those prices are accurate. The number of supply in the market is so trivial, it's hard to say what's fair. But you can see 10,000 is kind of is beginning to sort itself out as an epic magical sort of price point. I think at the end of the day, you'll find that that's not going to hold, because a tract of land is currently about 12,000, right? So if we went and we bought just a tract, there's a $14,000 tract right there. You could do that, and then you're going to get a keep. You're going to get maybe a castle. You're going to get some magicals and some occupieds, and you might not get an epic magical, but I would argue that 10,000 point doesn't make a lot of sense for 10 or even 16 and 17. You just go buy your own region or main tract. Let's carry on to legendaries. Legendaries, very few supply, only 9, starting at 1888. Again, Crypto Eater. He's got the building in the box, the unstable totem, and this is I would argue pretty juicy if you're the sort of guy who wants like 1, 2. You know, you want a small little. Maybe you only want one plot of land. One plot of land is going to be important. It's going to be meaningful. It's going to be helpful. And maybe you just want a legendary. I could see justifying $2,000 for one plot because it's legendary. And remember, I just said you could buy a tract and that would get you some legendaries. It would get you a keep or a castle. Maybe you should spend the extra 10 and go there. But you might have 2,000 that you're willing to invest, but you don't necessarily have 12 or 14,000. That doesn't necessarily follow. And so I could see this selling at 1888. I don't really believe that these will sell in the short term. Maybe these will, these magicals, because they're a totally different animal. Because again, you got magical, which is its own thing, and that's gonna speak into your ability to maximize your contributions to the Praetoria Secret research, and so the magical might be uniquely interesting. If you had one plot, this could be powerful, because you don't need to, because if you're searching to contribute to the Praetoria Secret, you don't necessarily need to move any assets here or there or everywhere. So shipping cost is not relevant. And so in some sense, magical would be the sort of plot you would want if you're getting one-off plots. Whereas if you're really trying to build a business that's going to mass produce resources that you'll move around and manipulate and sell, buy and sell and whatever to build items and spells, you're going to want to have consolidated plots of land. And therefore, maybe these one-offs for these high prices aren't the way. And then again, finding those commons and those rares that are in close connection to one another. Mythic, we have 12 deeds available right now, starting at 4,200 for the Crypto Eater keep. He's got the building in the box and the unstable totem with the wood resource. Again, you could spend 14 grand and get your own keep with 99 other plots, or if you only had 4,200, you could pull this one. Seems like a reasonable price considering the market comparables, but I don't know. I'm not sure I would rush into that. I think I'd find a way. If I had 4 grand, I'd find a way to get an extra 10 and go ahead and get my own tract. So let's circle back to the commons, and let's just go Control F, and we'll try and find magical. So it says 0 at first, but that's just because you have to scroll down to the bottom where there's the higher priced. As we scroll down within the peak monsters, we're actually populating more and more of the search. And then we find, I don't know if you can see that, it's probably behind my picture on the video, but there's actually a good, all those highlighted yellow words say magical. So there's actually a ton of magicals in the common rarity starting right there. So this is the cheapest one, magical common, $200. This is 3 times the price of a common. So that's interesting. It's something, and Zimos has got several of them. He's populating at $200. I would argue probably 200 is a good price. I think maybe you might even see, you might see a little bit lower. Maybe it goes down to 150, but I'm in that range. I'm paying attention, and you can start to just through looking at the window in this way, find the comparables. Are there any occupied? There are 11 occupieds using the find function. And I'm sure Peak Monsters will introduce a filter so that we can search these rather than doing the Control F. But for now, this works fine. We're at $690 for the first occupied, the cheapest common occupied. Interesting. This is going to be the occupied or the type that produce more SPS. So again, this would be potentially attractive if you were trying to buy one plot of land and you didn't want to create a business where you're sending assets back and forth, but you just want to maximize your SPS production. 690 is a big difference from 999. That's a 30% reduction. This is like, is this even a flip opportunity? That's another thing. Like not only is it, the opportunity for building your long-term business and your revenue stream. That's one option. The second option, buy an asset and hope for the long-term price appreciation and the long-term play. And then, so that's option 2. And then option 3 is there a short-term flip here? When you buy an asset like this for $690 and the next comparable is $990 or $99, maybe you could list it buy it for $690, sell it for $790 and make $100. And maybe that sells today. But then again, Crypto Eater, like I said, there he is again, undercutting everybody. So you got to be wary of that. And there's a good amount of risk in flipping when you don't really have a real strong floor. So buyer beware if that's your play, but be cognizant of the possibility there for you. And again, let's go over here into the rares and we're going to look for magic. There's only one magical within the rare. Yeah, there's 13 magicals within the rare. One is way cheaper than the others. So right here somewhere. Oh, my bad. It's right there. So that doesn't count. Oh, they do have them. So now that means they tell me that I can do the magical search. Boom, there we go. This wasn't here yesterday. Land type magical occupied castle keep wasn't a filter last night. Okay, so the cheapest is 420. Again, Crypto Eater. This is a rare magical. I think I have a couple of these. I've got 6 plots in Tridale and I've got 12 in Gorondale. So if we go into Gorondale and we go over here, we view all the plots. Okay, this is how I do it. So I'm currently looking at my owned plots in Gorondale. I have 5 in track 2 and 7 in track 3. What I'm looking for is magic. Magic has these like different versions of kind of electricity or whatever on the map. This is a water magic. That's why it's blue and it's kind of overlapping. You can see this Badlands looks like one way and then this looks more, has that blue rippling through it. So this is a rare water magic. So this should be in that 400 to 500 price point, which is cool. And then do I have any other I think I have one more rare magic. No, I have a common magic with the death. So I've got one rare magic. I think that was my best of my cards. And the common, the update for assessing the magical or occupied has just gone through because I can see that this one window doesn't have that search function, that search filter. So I have to refresh. And I want to look at common and I want to look at magical. So the price point starts at 200. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Okay, carrying on quickly. What are the magical epics worth? Again, 10,000 plus. I don't think they're worth that. That's what they're going for. And in the mythic magicals, there are none listed. Castles and keeps are available. Again, I don't know that they're worth that, especially these keeps. If you can spend $4,000 on a keep, I think find a way to spend the 14 grand on a tract and then get your own keep with the possibility of it becoming a castle. But I think that gives us a good sense of where the price points are. In the common, you're looking at from the $70 to $200, depending on if it's basic or if it's If it happens to be magical, occupied would be even more than that, but they're so rare, it's going to be applied to so few of you. Rare is going to start from that 150 if it's basic, up to maybe 500 if it's magical. Again, if you have occupied, even more, but that's going to be, again, exceedingly rare. In the epic range, you're starting in that 300 range, and that seems to be a really good deal. Yesterday, that was like the lowest I saw, and it's not a grain either, but I almost wish this one was a magical. Well, of course I wish it was magical, but see, again, you buy this one and you don't have any other plots next to it. How are you gonna, I guess you would just sell your ore into the market. Very tempting though. So 300 to 500 for a basic epic, going into 10,000 if you're talking about magical or whatever. And legendary for 2,000 this one was listed yesterday at that price. This does seem like a price to sell situation. I'm not saying I would buy it. I'm just saying it's like, that's probably what they're worth right now. And I think ultimately we see massive multipliers on all of these plots of land, once they're actually producing the resources that they're intended to produce. And I think we're set for end of Q2 for that to transpire. So there's massive changes coming to Splinterlands in the next couple months, because I believe they'll be on target with that. Because once they execute that plan, you're going to have a massive sink for cards. That's going to transform what happens with price valuations on the rentals and the sale market for cards. That's going to draw new eyes on the game, because of the multipliers to your account are going to be massive. And you're going to go to Twitter, you're going to go to YouTube, you're going to go to Twitch, and you're going to talk about that. That's free advertising. It's going to draw new eyes and new investors. Then you're going to see more people chasing after the green candles, looking for their own cards of decks. And also they're going to see what's happening in the land, and the volume will be spiking. Watch it. The volume on these sales will spike. We're looking at, right now, I said we were looking at 46,000, 47,000 on the 24-hour volume. This is going to be much, much, much larger when this thing is actually live. Between now and that time when it's actually live, maybe we do see some reduced prices. So short term, there might be some opportunities, and definitely there are opportunities for those who are paying attention for those, maybe those flips and whatnot. So if you want to be monitoring the market for the next 48 hours to even, 2 weeks, you might see some really unique purchases. But I would argue that in the short term, there's opportunity perhaps to get more, whereas in the medium to long term, this seems like an absolute layup. I am super confident. Do you share that confidence? Do you think I'm overestimating the future productive power and price appreciation for these assets, or you think I'm right on the money? Please leave a comment below letting me know. Have an amazing day. God bless.